Hey everybody, Professor Snart checking in yet again as we continue moving through our units. Pretty quick pace we've got going here. So we've just finished up Unit 3 and we are now looking at Units 4 and then 5 relatively quick around the corner. So 4 is due Wednesday, June 4th, and then 5 Friday, and then honestly 6 right around that corner too, Monday. So I'm just going to look through 4 and 5 really quickly here, since those are next on our agenda. Long title on this one. We cover a lot of various things. You'll notice that if you submitted the assignment for Unit 3, which was the paragraph, there's material that's in Unit 4 that kind of reflects backwards. So it's sort of generic feedback that might explain a little bit more about why you got the grade you got in terms of what I was looking for specifically, which is sort of repeated in the assignment itself. So there's not a lot of individual marking up of the paragraphs that I do, but hopefully you can sort of figure out based on what you're seeing here in Unit 4, but also, Unit 4, but also the assignment itself from Unit 3. If you followed the guidelines, did you make some of these common mistakes? You can kind of figure out where the grade comes from. Obviously, if you still have questions, by all means be in touch with me. But then we move into Unit 4 itself. You're looking at a sample essay, which isn't great in terms of some of its formatting issues, like the MLA part, but is pretty good in terms of tone and scope and approach and all that sort of stuff. So this is a good model essay in terms of all of those things for the type of writing that we'll be doing for the class. So it's good to early on here get a little exposure to that, so you're sort of in that frame of mind in terms of how your essays will ultimately sound, how much they cover, how they work with the primary source material, in this case Faulkner's A Rose for Emily. So it's not perfect necessarily by any means, but certainly a good example of, again, tone, style, approach that our own essays will have. A little bit on thesis statements. Again, one of the cornerstones of our essays. Even though we're writing about literary works, they're not just opinion-based essays. It's not whether you liked it or disliked it, or the author does a good or a bad job at something. It's something more analytical, which again, this sample essay does a nice job of presenting a sort of idea about the work, not just your individual opinion of it. The writing process, we really don't spend a lot of time on that, and the best advice I can provide here is not to tell you what the quote-unquote perfect writing process is, the one you have to follow, but just to be aware that everybody has a process, even if yours happens to be get the assignment and try to write the essay. So it's not an effective process, but it is a process. So it's really good to just be aware of what yours is and to make sure that it does include some important steps. Obviously, you're looking at the essay prompt and analyzing or thinking about the question. And then from there, again, the order of these steps might vary depending on, what suits your situation. And just because you finish one doesn't mean that you don't return to it. So you may read the primary text, the short story, again as a form of research, plan a little bit, but also as you're writing a draft, maybe you're altering the plan. Maybe you're going back to look for quotes. So they all do sort of get mixed together. It's not unorganized. And really, again, there's no sort of perfect order of doing these things. What's important is that you're aware of your process. And especially if you find that you're investing a lot of energy in writing essays, but not always getting the grade that you think reflects all of that hard work. It might not be your writing, quote unquote, although that's what most people think. It might just be sort of a process that doesn't work. So instead of focusing so much on just the writing part or the end product part, is there maybe something in that process that you need to revisit? So something you do differently, a different order, a step you add, a step you take out, something along those lines. So especially as we get closer to our first essay, I'll remind you to be just aware of what your process is for that essay and making sure that it's working as effectively as it can be. And of course, for our purposes, it's really important to think about process because you can't really spend a lot of extra time fumbling around and trying to figure out where you're going or what you're doing or getting stuck. because in our format, we just don't have that kind of time to spend. So that's about all I have to say about the writing process. The rest of it is, again, just focused on sort of elements of the essay, again, sort of prepping us towards that essay assignment, and then a discussion board about flight patterns, hopefully helping us to just think a little bit more deeply about that particular story. So lots of, again, one of those units where there's not just one big assignment, but lots of kind of micro assignments. And honestly, just a lot of material that you want to attend to, so don't just skip to what you have to do. Make sure you're actually reading through this stuff as well. And then into Unit 5, which is an interesting one. It gets us into our next reading for the course, which is a short story called Boys and Girls by Alice Munro. She recently just won was it a Nobel Prize in Literature? I can't remember, some mammoth award, so even more famous than she was before. This is, I think, a fun unit because it has us thinking about this short story, but relative to this more sort of pop culture subject. The song Just a Girl by No Doubt, which you might remember, but the video's here, you can watch it. The song and the imagery and the lyrics and all the stuff that's presented here, it actually mirrors in so many interesting ways the short story. I won't say too much about that. I think it'll be pretty obvious to you, how they kind of reflect on one another. And then the assignment is, in addition to checking that you've got a library card, which is a lot of scrolling here, a discussion board that's connected with this, watching this video and then reading the story, and then really thinking about, how the two are reflecting one another. So sort of a fun exercise in comparing something literary versus non-literary, although if you remember the intro from our textbook, one of our first readings, those distinctions might be sort of challenged here. Okay, anyway, lots to be doing and keeping us busy. If you have any questions about assignments we've done or material in the course or assignments that are coming up, by all means be in touch with me, and I will talk to everybody soon.